SCORE Northeast Wisconsin and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences. From starting to sustaining growth, learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you miss anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning. This is Terry Finch. Welcome to Biz Talk. I'm joined this week as co-host by Pat Lowney. Pat, how are you this week?
Hi, Terry. I'm doing good. Glad to be
Excellent.
here.
Getting lots of biking in?
I am. We
It's
bump
been
into
good.
each other every once in a while.
Yep, I've been enjoying it. This week our guests are Courtney and Garrett Sowle, owners of the Yard Brewing and Distilling Company in Oconto. Courtney and Garrett, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks. All right. Before we get into the Yard Brewing and Distilling Company, tell us how you got to the point of starting the company. What was your path?
So I guess in 2022 we started an outdoor beer garden that was seasonally open. And we specialized in, selling craft beer, and mixed drinks right on our 3-acre parcel on the river. And we had always wanted to, start a brewery. And I guess, we didn't have plans to do that at the time that we opened up this beer garden, but, it ended up being a pretty good segue into it later.
Yeah, we just wanted a place for our family to go and hang out. We didn't, we liked to go to the beer gardens that we visited in Milwaukee and in Philadelphia when we lived there. So we wanted to recreate something like that in the town that we lived in. So that's why we originally did the beer garden thing. And then, then it transitioned into brewing and distilling as that business kind of evolved. It just was a nice transition. It's always been something that we wanted to do, like she said.
So was the beer garden successful right from the beginning?
Yeah, it was. We had 3 really good seasons. The first 2 seasons were just the beer garden. And then we spent about a year preparing for the brewery and distillery to open that. And then the last season we opened, which was last year, 2020, summer of 2024, that was operating as a brewery, as our second location. So it gave us a good chance to trial all of our brand new beers that we had made, and get it out to the public and get feedback and things like that.
Okay.
So tell me about a beer garden. What makes a beer garden attractive?
I guess we had a ton of yard games. So it was a place where we had a lot of families come and, their kids would go out and play and meet other kids and the parents could sit down and have a drink. We had a lot of food trucks that would come, on different days of the week. And then we, had volleyball. We had, just like the plastic axe throwing yard games. We had bag toss. We had horseshoes. Pretty much any yard game that exists, we had it out there. And then we also had, a large dock so people could come with their boat or, come by kayak or stand up paddleboard or anything like that. Come have a couple drinks and then head back out. So.
Yeah, the name The Yard is kind of supposed to be like, it's just like hanging out in your backyard. It's, your friends getting together. You're not going into like a dark, dingy bar. You get to just go hang out in your backyard with your friends. And people would come and say, it was just amazing to go somewhere with their family and all the kids could play. And then the parents could hang out and, talk, as adults while their kids were occupied. And they're like, this has been great. I haven't seen my kids in 3 hours. They weren't hanging on me and we were able to have a good conversation. So that's kind of what our vision for it was. And it turned out great.
And if I remember right from Facebook, you had a tiki bar on the site, didn't you?
Yeah. So we started, we took a horse trailer and converted it into a bar, for our first season. And then for the last 2 seasons, we've built the tiki bar on the property and ran out of that.
Okay.
Just going
on. Sold?
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Yeah.
We did. We sold it to Wentz on the Lake. So the Tiki Bar is now there.
Okay. So in your first year running just the beer garden, the sales were enough that it convinced you guys could make your own beer and sell that there too?
Yeah. The sales were good the first year, and I guess, we just wanted to continue evolving the company. And I don't know, maybe you can explain
Yeah,
better.
and it was multifaceted. It was kind of, we had an opportunity for the piece of real estate, kind of came available at a good deal, and we're in real estate. We do, vacation rentals as our main business. But when we saw this, the old feed mill kind of come for sale, we thought, it's a good deal. What can we use it for? And we always had been interested in brewing and distilling. We already own the beer garden. So we thought they all kind of meshed together well. And we, could try our hand at, doing some of our own beer. And, when we did, people seemed to really like it. So that's why we're continuing to grow the business that way.
So I know too, was it last year you also started the distilling as well?
Yeah. So our plan originally was to focus more on the brewing aspect. But as we were sourcing out equipment, we found a supplier that sold stills and kind of walked us through the process and convinced us that we could add that on and be successful in that as well. So we added that as well, got all the licensing for that, which just took a little bit longer, which is why the distilling aspect launched a couple months after the brewery did.
And what was
So is it common
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
is it common for people to do brewing and distilling at the same time?
I think it's relatively common.
Yeah,
I mean,
somewhat less than I would think that would do it. I was researching a little bit in Wisconsin how many I could find that did both, and it was definitely less than I thought. Really, only a handful, but nationwide, there's a lot that do it. I just didn't seem to come across a lot in Wisconsin. I'm not entirely sure why, because they do complement each other pretty well, and a lot of the, licensing and stuff is somewhat similar. So I'm not really sure why breweries don't add distilling or vice versa, but we thought it would work well,
Okay.
and it definitely does.
Yeah.
It just seems that I'm more familiar with it's a separation of one to the other, but maybe that's from just being in Wisconsin, right?
yeah, and I think that there are some in Wisconsin that even have them branded separately, so they'll have different names for the distillery and the brewery, even if they are in the same building. I know of a couple that do that as well.
Okay. Well, let's talk then about how you make beer and distill. How did you learn how to make beer? Let's put it that way first.
Yeah, the processes are actually somewhat similar to begin with, as far as making beer and then making your wash for the distilling. But yeah, we didn't know a ton about brewing and distilling, so that's why we sort of leaned on our partners that we sourced our equipment from, since we knew going in that we didn't have a ton of, knowledge and experience brewing and distilling. We strategically chose equipment suppliers that offered, support in getting you up and running. So we had people from those companies fly out here and, basically teach us the ropes on how to make, world-class beer, and just had a lot of one-on-one training with them, is how we learned that process.
Okay. So you hadn't been a home brewer or home distiller before?
No.
No, I always wanted to, and we thought, well, we'll just jump in with both feet, go right into commercial production, only knowing that we could lean on our partners because they're experts and they know what they're doing. So.
Yeah. So, and I guess if I remember right, are you both UW Stout graduates?
Yep.
So you've got education in the logistics side of things. That's what Stout's really well known for, among other things. But
Yeah, we're both packaging engineers actually, so quite fitting for brewing and distilling.
yeah, so a natural inclination to figure out the supply chain too.
Yep.
Okay, so you've got you've started making the beer and you're doing the distilling. First, let's talk about what products do you make? What beers do you sell? Don't have to list them all, but what kind of beers and what kind of spirits?
So we have a few different IPAs. We do a blonde ale. We do a few different flavored ales. We do a sour beer, really, really sour beer. And then we do a stout as well, and a pilsner. And then for liquor, we currently have vodka, white rum, and whiskey.
Okay. And I assume you're constantly, in fact, from reading, I know that you're adding and trialing different things all the time. Yeah. Is that the plan, is to continue to expand the menu over time?
Yeah, definitely. When we ran the beer garden last year, we tried a lot of different types of beers and flavors of beers. Some flavors that we haven't run again yet, but people are constantly asking us to bring them back. But yes, the plan, we've done like a few polls on Facebook as well, asking people, between a few handful of different options, what our customers are looking for and things like that to help us, kind of figure out what we should bring to the market.
Okay. So after learning the manufacturing side, and you have the small business going, how did you learn about running a small business in general?
I would say that some of it we had learned from our real estate business and kind of carried over. A lot of our softwares and things like that and accounting were pulled over from that business, and were similar, but a lot of it is just trial and error as well. I don't know, just doing a lot of research and listening to a lot of podcasts and going from there.
And what about on the marketing and selling side? Had you had experience in that, or how did you learn more about doing that?
No, I didn't have much experience in that at all. And I'm still learning, but, I've hired a few different people to kind of help with, graphics on my labels and things like that. And, I've really just taken the marketing over, myself for now, but the plan is to turn that over to somebody that knows a little bit more about it in the future, when there's a budget for it. But, yeah, just also kind of learning by trial and error through marketing as well.
So how did you find it? Was it much more difficult because it was new to you, or did you find it was a pretty smooth transition to be able to run this kind of business?
I would say that it wasn't that bad starting with the beer garden. I mean, we had already built up, clientele, and a lot of people already knew that we existed. And we got asked pretty often if we made our own products, and we didn't at that time. But when we started to, I would say it was a relatively easy transition, just given that we had already been an operating business for the last 2 years. So a lot of the upfront work and creating LLCs and, even some of the marketing had already taken place for promoting the beer garden that then transitioned into the brewery and distillery.
Okay. As we wrap up this segment, just a question as you look at where this business is going, do you see this eventually being your primary business, or will it be always one part of a bigger business?
It's tough to say because, we've been in the vacation rentals for so long that's what we know best. And this is still relatively new to us. But what this business has that one doesn't is basically exponential and infinite, possibility to grow, that business. It's a little bit harder, buying houses. This one is a little bit more exponential possibilities. So it is tough to say how it can go.
Okay. We're at the point where we're going to take our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk or Score on WHBY. I'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're glad you joined us this morning. Our guests this morning are Courtney and Garrett Sowle, and they own the Yard Brewing and Distillery in Oconto. And before we continue our conversation with Courtney and Garrett, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Score Northeast Wisconsin. SCORE Northeast Wisconsin serves an 18-county area in Northeast Wisconsin, plus the counties of Menominee and Michigan. We have over 50 volunteers, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, HR, retail best practices, and many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and or to learn more about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin, visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. You can learn more about how the SCORE chapter can assist you with starting and or growing your business. And you can complete an online application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, the SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. And to support small business people, SCORE Northeast Wisconsin is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience you'd like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with expertise in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference in their success. Go to score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, click on the volunteer button, and fill in the short application. We'll get back to you and explain more. And thanks again for joining us on Biz Talk. And I want to turn back now to Courtney and Garrett. And a question that I've got is, you converted an old feed mill in Oconto into your brewery and distillery. Can you tell us about that process?
Yeah, it seemed like a good fit for a brewery and distillery just because, a feed mill is basically, they have a lot of the same processes happening as a brewery and distillery. It's, grain milling, and as far as permitting and stuff like that goes, they're seen as the same use essentially. So it's a good fit to use something that is already of the same basic use and structure, as opposed to trying to like completely start from scratch or convert something that is not even close to the same type of business.
Probably had a lot of visibility too in the town, right? Feed mills generally were fairly big and in the center of everything.
Yeah, it's just right off Main Street here. Everyone, always kind of knew what it was. It actually shut down quite a few years ago and had been sitting vacant. So when we had the opportunity to buy it, we thought it would be cool opportunity to revive an old piece of history and, make it, part of the community again. So it was nice to be able to, make it look nice again. It's all repainted on the outside, and I don't know how many compliments we got on, thanks for bringing this, kind of crappy looking old building and making it look nice and doing this for the community and everything. So that's kind of nice to do that. And as far as, the build out or whatever, just because it was an old building, it was, had to level out the concrete, but essentially it's just kind of a open warehouse and, got our equipment dropped in here. So there wasn't a whole ton needed to do to the building since it was already basically a feed mill use. So it was not too bad compared to some of the other projects that we've done.
Okay. Let's take another break. This is Biz Talk on WHBY, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Biz Talk. This week we're talking to Courtney and Garrett Sowle of the Yard Brewing and Distilling Company in Oconto. But before we get back to Courtney and Garrett, I want to talk to you a little bit about some educational opportunities. We mention regularly the webinars that we have in place, and there are literally hundreds of them online, most of them free. A few have charges, but most are free that you can go on to the SCORE website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin and click on the workshops and events, and you'll find an incredible number of courses that you can take. We also have some live events that are live webinars, and coming up, there are two that I wanted to mention. One is called Cybersecurity for Your Small Business. That's on August 5th at 11 o'clock. And everybody's heard about all the different cybersecurity hacks that have been happening. Even Microsoft, some of their software was hacked this week. But if you want to understand more about how to protect your small business, you can listen to this webinar. It's on August 5th, and it's cybersecurity in your small business. And you can go online to sign up for that. And the other one I was going to mention is on July 31st, and it's SBA loan opportunities for small business programs, eligibility, and how to apply. So one question a lot of small businesses have is on how do they get funding. One opportunity is through the Small Business Administration loan programs. And what many people don't know is you can't actually apply directly to the Small Business Administration, except in the case of certain disaster loans. You have to go through a bank. And so this course is a good way to learn about what's required to be eligible for the loans and what you have to go through to get it, because at times it works really well. They work with your bank, local bank, and it's a good way to get some money to help fund your business. So again, go to score.org/Northeast Wisconsin and click on the workshops and events tab. Okay, so with that, we're going to turn back to Courtney and Garrett and talking some more about the Yard Brewing and Distilling Company. So I want to talk a little bit more now in more detail about some of the things you went through to build your business, both good and bad. But let's start with some of the licensing requirements. How is that? You're in a distilling and brewing area that even 5 years ago had significant number of licenses. What did you have to go through to get all the licenses that you needed to start up?
Well, that was another nice thing about one of the equipment lenders that the equipment producers that we use. They ended up they had an attorney on staff that actually went through the TTB federal licensing for us. So they sat down with us and, collected all the information that they needed for that. And then I did the state of Wisconsin license myself. And then as far as that was for the beer. And then for the distillery, I actually did both myself, but I learned what I needed to do for the TTB federal license for distilling based off of my application for the brewer's permit.
And were those time consuming to get through?
Yeah. I mean, you had to have pretty accurate architectural plans submitted on really the state and the federal level, and then state had an inspection as well at the end of the licensing process. And then, the lead time, it sounds like the lead time used to be a little bit worse, but it was probably 2 months federal and probably about a month and a half for state.
All in all, the process from, start to we're permitted and ready to go probably took 6 months or so.
Yeah.
We didn't know how long that was longer than I thought it would take, personally. But Courtney was pretty on it. She was working on it every single day, making sure that we were moving forward. She kind of has that personality. But yeah, I would say it took about 6 months, and I can't imagine anyone doing it much quicker than that, to get open.
Okay. And then looking at some of the local issues, how did you find working with the local council and getting things done?
When we first got approved for the beer garden, things were relatively good, and it seemed like we could have a good working relationship with the city. And then there's just a lot of city employees that don't really want change here and aren't very business friendly. And I think there's a lot of businesses in Oconto that would say that they've gone through a similar experience, and it was something that we didn't really look into or prioritize as much as we should have until it was too late. Yeah, I would say it's definitely very important to make sure that you are in a city that welcomes, new businesses and is looking for growth before you invest a ton of money into a business there.
Yeah, your local politics can really make it as hard or as easy as they want on you. So it is very important. And if we were to go back, I would choose a different, more business-friendly city, and I would recommend, others to look into that. Ask other business owners how they thought, getting their business up and running was with the local politics, is what I would recommend.
Okay. So as you look at all you've gone through, what were some of the results that you've seen? So why did you had to close your beer garden at one point as you moved to the new distillery? Why did you close the beer garden?
Because we were going through a lot of issues with the city where they gave us approval and then they later tried to take away the approval. And it actually just went through municipal court a couple weeks ago and just had the decision made that we did not do anything wrong and that we weren't guilty. But they actually started fining us $300 a day to be serving out on that beer garden towards the end of last season. And it just, we started that business as a fun, family-friendly, something to, occupy our summers. It was supposed to be fun, and it just turned into something that wasn't fun, fighting, with the city and fighting over regulations and if it's allowed or if it's not allowed, and, dealing with attorneys. That's just not fun. So it wasn't worth it anymore, to keep going with the beer garden, which is one of the reasons that we closed it. However, that probably would have happened anyway, given that, the way that the local laws work for breweries and distilleries, beer, you are given a secondary retail location. So I could sell my beer at a different location, which was, off-site, this beer garden. However, liquor could only ever be sold at the main distillery. So, and that's kind of where the plan ended up switching to take our brewery and distillery production facility and open up a tap room there. But just given some of the hardships that we've gone through with the city, it's just, it just doesn't really seem worth it to continue investing money into the city that, doesn't really want the business or the growth.
So if you step back and look, what would you have done differently a couple of years ago?
And that's kind of a hard question because, I don't think that we would have opened up this business somewhere else a couple of years ago. We found a good building. Logistically it made sense to be in Oconto, halfway in between Marinette and Green Bay. This area didn't have a brewery or a distillery. There was a lot of reasons why it made sense to be here. And I don't know if the easy answer would be, we just would have opened this somewhere else and in a different city that was more business friendly. However, I don't know if we actually would have done that given that just a lot of things came together that put us here. So, it just is part of our path and it makes sense that we might need to, move on from here and open up a tap room in a different location. But, it's still, this business maybe wouldn't have existed had we looked more into the local politics and decided not to open it here 2 years ago.
Okay. So as you work through and you look at the business has changed almost every year. You've gone through significant change and you stuck with it. And as you look at everything that's happened, how confident you feel that there is a really good path forward for you from here?
I think there definitely is. Right now we are basically distribution only. So we work with a couple different distributors for our beer and our liquor, and that's how different bars, restaurants, grocery stores purchase our products. However, Oconto is a super small town of only 4,000 people, and just based on the growth that we've experienced in the last year, I think we would be ready to grow into a larger city anyway, even if, some of these issues hadn't have come up. So, I see us growing into a larger city, opening up the tap room that we always intended on opening up, and then continuing to launch new products on the beer and liquor side, and continuing to expand our distribution.
Okay.
So I have a question I want to ask about regulation. In some of my career, I spent a lot of time in the industry that I was in, being involved fairly heavily in government, and it's kind of looking out for the industry I was in. It might be at a state level, it might be at a county level, a local level, even a federal level. And part of it was to keep aware of what's coming or what's happening that might affect us directly, and then get input in there before it actually directly impacted us. Have you guys given any thought to that?
I mean, the state of Wisconsin just went through a ton of changes in the alcohol laws, and luckily we knew that that was all coming. I mean, that's been in the works for years, and we knew that that was all passing in May of 2024, I think was the month that it passed. So we knew that we were going to be abiding by those new rules and regulations. But just because of the timing of when we got involved, you know, with brewing and distilling and starting to look everything up, there weren't any further changes outside of what we already knew was going to get passed. And a lot of them, honestly, I look at it as benefiting breweries and distilleries more so than they did. It's become, you know, it's almost become better and easier for them than it was before this new bill passed. And we knew all of that going into this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as you get into starting up a tap room and have some time to step back and look. Your experience probably offers a lot there'll be state associations for both brewing and distilling. And you guys probably have some good experience that would really make a difference to people too. So something you could look at, because you guys have certainly gone through a lot to get where you are today.
Yeah.
Want to step back to something we talked about quickly before, but what really fascinated me is that you had every other brewery and distillery that I've talked to and winery, they've been making home versions of it before they started. You guys jumped right in and started with this. And in order to do that, you had to get some really good support, and you did that. So how did you find the consultants that came in and helped you learn how to do this?
Garrett?
Yeah, I think just knowing that we didn't have the home brewing experience that a lot of people did going into it, we intentionally were searching for equipment suppliers, you know, that offered support. So there are companies out there that's their business model basically, is they charge a little bit more for their equipment, but what you get with that is the support with sourcing and production, and you know, they hold your hand, they teach you everything. So it's kind of, you're paying for it with the equipment. You're getting all of that support and education. So that's what we were specifically looking for. They
came, and as far as the brewery equipment goes, specifically our brew tanks, they came in, they set them all up. They taught us everything about it, how to use it. And I don't know, we had done some research, you know, in the year prior to this as well, but it doesn't really compare to having the hands-on, you know, help and experience that these companies offered us.
We could have never done it without that. And even as far as just setting up the equipment, you know, it sounds simple, you just drop it down, but no, it took them, you know, a lot of time to walk through getting all the equipment set up. And it's like, okay, glad we have the experts here to help us through this, because I wouldn't have been able to figure it out myself.
And the feedback on your products has been very good. So you learned from them. How do you decide what you're going to make, and how have you gotten good at making these products?
I guess as far as deciding what to make, I mean, we do a lot of Facebook polls and, you know, ask our customer base what they're looking for. And aside from that, we're big craft beer drinkers ourselves. So we kind of have, you know, we love IPAs. So we've made, you know, 3 different kinds of IPAs just to try, you know, just to make stuff that we like to drink. I'm also a big fan of sour beers. So, that was how we made, got into making sours. And I don't know, some of the other ones, like I don't know, you like light beers and you know.
A lot of it we just made, what we would prefer, and when I say we made, I mean, we had our experts help us, craft it. But basically it's, a lot of what we like. And, we'll do Facebook polls with our followers and see what other people want. And we'll take that into consideration and do a lot of what other people ask for.
Are there regional differences in the taste, for what people prefer, let's say in Oconto versus Milwaukee, or I know you were out in Philadelphia for a while, you said too?
I would say, somewhat. In Oconto, you get more of,
light.
We want Busch Light, basically, that type of thing. And, in the bigger cities, you get more of, it's got to be super hoppy, that type of thing. So I kind of think that there is a little bit difference, from what I've seen.
Yeah. So talk for a few minutes just about selling the product, because that's, for a small business, something that's hard to do. Selling these products. How did you figure out how you sell wine and beer? You can't just go out in the corner and start selling it. How did you figure out how to do it?
I guess a lot of that is also from the beer garden. I mean, we built connections with a lot of different distributors. And one of the beer distributor that we used, they actually were, their local rep lives in Oconto and actually saw my post about us opening up a brewery, and they reached out to me and we connected from there and, brought them in once we had our production facility all set up and kind of talked through what a partnership would look like with them. And then as far as the liquor goes, I reached out to distributors that I had built connections with when we were ordering from them, for our beer garden, and kind of similar process, had them come out to the production facility, talk to their managers and higher ups, and, put a contract in place with them as well.
Just as an aside, it's a story we hear a lot, and that I think people starting small business underestimate. It's how important networking is. They hate the word, but it's absolutely critical to the success of the business.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And whether it's, brewing, distilling, or real estate, or whatever type of business it is, a lot of them can be looked at the same. I mean, we didn't really know how to brew and distill, but we leveraged the experts in the industry. We found the, people that knew how to make it and could teach us how to do that. And we leveraged our distributors that know how to distribute it and sell it. So we're just kind of, a middleman of leveraging all these experts, just like we do in our real estate business, leveraging our cleaners and, handymen and everything like that. So it's just, there's some similarities between a lot of these businesses, and it's leveraging your experts and your network.
So how can a listener go and find your beer? Where are the places they can buy it from?
So in Green Bay, we are in Hy-Vee. We're in the 3 Festival Foods locations. We're in Woodman's. And then in Marinette, we're in Jack's Fresh Market. We're at the Piggly Wiggly in Oconto Falls. And then we also do curbside pickup at our production facility in Oconto. And we're at the local grocery store in Oconto as well, Thompson's County Market. And then, in order to do curbside pickup, our website is theyardbeveragegroup.com.
And we have a, more comprehensive list of where you can find our products on the website. And there's also bars, we're here at Dockside in Oconto too. That's a great place to visit. But you can find it on our website for mainly where we are.
And have you found that the beers that you would have sold at the beer garden, the ones that did well at the beer garden, do well in the stores too? Or is it different? Do you find different things sell in different places?
I would say it's pretty similar, yes. At our beer garden, we had a lot more of our flavored ales. We don't mass produce all of the different flavored ales that we had on tap. We had about 10 of our beers on tap at the beer garden. So And a lot of them are seasonal as well, so they kind of go through different waves. But yeah, I would say it's pretty similar to what the favorites were out at the beer garden to what they are out in the market.
Yeah, I'd say our most popular ones are the speckled goat, which is very similar to a spotted cow from New Glarus, and our vodka is really popular. People seem to really like that, and we're actually looking at doing organic vodka too, and some other canned vodka soda cocktails too in the future.
Okay, we're at the place where we're going to take our final break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. I'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Biz Talk. I'd like to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with Score to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Hailing & Associates. Hailing & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan ahead. A collaborative approach that helps you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Hailing & Associates, personal connection, positive results. Thank you to Johnson Financial Group. Wherever you are in the life of your business, Johnson Financial Group works to understand your goals and matches the banking and wealth services needed to help you complete your mission. Thanks to the Business News for promoting our program in the business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. The paper is delivered bi-weekly and contains relevant and useful information about the business community in the region. We would also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation in support of Biz Talk and Score Northeast Wisconsin. Okay, now turn back to Courtney and Garrett, and could you let our listeners know how they can contact the Yard Brewing and Distilling Company?
Yeah, we have a contact form on our website at theyardbeveragegroup.com or by email at contact@theyardbrewing.com.
Okay. So we had mentioned before the potential for a tap room in the future. Can you talk about what the tap room would mean for the growth of your business?
Yeah, I think it would be a great opportunity to trial different beers, and, you know, be able to try some new flavors and things like that and see, you know, how our customers like it and react to them before we launch them in distribution. Yeah,
it's just something that a lot of people ask for. When we're out doing tastings, everyone wants to come to our facilities, sit down and have a drink. So I think that if people are asking for it, it's something that we should look into, and it can help give visibility to our brands and to our business. And hopefully in, a bit bigger of a city with some more foot traffic, Green Bay or Marinette, I think, and maybe if we can mix in a little bit of our, real estate into it too, have a mixed use brewery, distillery, tap room with, short-term rental attached, that would be great too.
It's funny. There's one in Michigan that I know of that does that, and they do really well.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Anyhow, so with having a tap room too, do you think that will help as you look at further outlets, whether they be area bars or grocery stores or other locations? Is that part of the process of growing too? Is that a necessary step to really help you in those areas too?
Yeah, I think it would, to continue to, gain visibility about our brands. I mean, we're still new, and a tap room definitely helps with that. There's definitely a lot of people that, travel up north and go through all of these cities, Green Bay, Oconto, Marinette, to different up north, either, places in Wisconsin or even in Michigan. And, having an on-site location, I think would definitely help.
Yeah, and it's a little different having your product on the shelf in a grocery store than, where you can go and touch and see and feel it. It's an activity. People like to go brewery hopping or whatever, gives someone something to do, and then they can, see it in person. It just has a different feel to it to give your brand more recognition and visibility. But we'll also be growing the distribution as well, expanding that too.
Yeah. And as we talked about before, you've got a nice large old feed mill converted that you can continue to expand in. So, as I wrap up the show then, first I want to thank you for being a guest. You have a good story, and it's interesting one to see how your career has evolved and how you've moved around and what you're doing, but also taking the risk to build this brewery and distillery. So thank you very much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for listening to our story.
And for listeners, you can find more at our website, score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, and you'll see a place to click on Biz Talk, and you'll be able to get about 6 years of previous episodes. Actually, it's up to 7 years now, and also be able to hear more about see a little bit more about the show. You will hear it live, obviously, now on WHBY Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock, and then the podcast goes out the following Wednesday. So thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show and learned a lot, and we'll talk to you next week.